He keeps himself in trim by bending bars of iron. This bar is the genuine article which we tested before he began to play with it.
Beyond the bend, beyond the bend.
All right, Mr. Chris Rice, welcome to Beyond the Bend.
Thanks for having me.
So we'll start it like I start every one. Tell me about the first time you remember seeing someone bend a piece of steel.
My first time was not probably watching. My first interest came from the Mighty Atom, Slim the Hammer Man, the old Strength and Health, the turn of the century strongmen shows and stuff. Probably the first person I saw in real life was probably Pat Povolitis or Dennis Rogers, probably at like the Night of Strength at the Arnold, and was fascinated by what Pat could do. I mean, the guy is just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. He's somebody that he's on my list, and I've made a little bit of contact, and I think we'll make it happen eventually. I know people really want to hear that one. So just take me back, and starting as a kid, were you always interested in athletics and strength?
As a kid, I was the normal small town kid and interested in all the different sports. Of course, we didn't have as many options as they do quite today, maybe, but I was pretty sickly as a young kid. I had rheumatic fever at 5 and just skinny as a rail. So at age 11, I got my first weight set. I saved up all my yard mowing money and bought a 110-pound Billard weight set and started lifting. And I'm still at it, and I've still got that same weight set.
No kidding.
Yeah, I'm using it right now for my wrist curl challenge I've set for myself to get back up to 200-pound wrist curl.
Oh, wow. There's actually, I don't know if I've brought it up on the show before, but just in my own research, there's some type of correlation or maybe just coincidence between super strong people and illness as a child. I know in my reading that the Mighty Atom had some stuff go on as a child. Marvin Eder, Dennis Rogers, I believe, had something. And I even think Pat Povolitis might have too in my research.
Got a rod in his spine, I know.
Yeah. So some of the strongest people ever had some type of adversity as a child. I just find that correlation a little bit interesting.
I started out when I was born, I had to wear those little shoes with the steel rod between them because I was so pigeon-toed.
Oh.
And then I had rheumatic fever at 5, and at 15, I was in a pretty nasty car wreck. Had a traumatic brain injury and blew out most of my lower teeth. 2 crushed vertebrae in my neck and 3 in my mid-back. Crushed my chest, collapsed lung, turned my body black from the waist down.
Oof.
And, just that was the start.
Yeah. Yikes. So you were kind of building yourself back up after that, right? That was what.
Yeah. When you're so young, like 15, you never think about the fact that, this isn't all going to work out. You just go ahead and get on with it. And at 15, your body heals so well that you make it through.
Yep. That's wild. So how did you find yourself taking to the weights at such a young age? What were you just reading and just copying the people you looked up to?
Strength and Health magazine. And then Muscular Development and Ironman, all the old time monthly magazines. I subscribed to all of those and picked a routine, and or many routines. I had 3 or 4 friends in the neighborhood, and we lifted on my mom and dad's front porch, rain or shine or snow or whatever. and we got stronger. We had 100 pounds because the 10 pounds was for the 2 dumbbell bars. So, 10 reps was good, 20 ought to be better, and maybe 30 or 40 is even better yet because you only have 100 pounds.
Yep.
and we just kept going and going and going. And I think that the shape I was in probably had a big impact on the recovery from that car wreck.
Yeah, I'm sure. So how did things progress as you got to be an older teenager into a young man? What other type of training did you get into, or were there any other sports on the table?
Well, I played football until I had that wreck, and then I wasn't allowed to play anymore because my jaw was full of wires and screws and crap. Uh, I was pretty terrible football player, actually. I mean, we ran, right up the middle, about 9 plays out of 10, and threw the ball maybe once a game. The only thing I could do was run fast and catch the ball, so I wasn't a whole lot of good to anybody.
Yeah.
I was pretty decent at track. I set the league and school and league pole vault record when I was a junior. They bought me a fiberglass, that was on an aluminum pole, always into a sawdust pit. Then they bought me a fiberglass pole, but I weighed like 160, and they bought like a 190-pound pole, which didn't help anything. We had a weight routine in high school that I've never really heard of before or since. We used a 45-pound fixed weight. We did 3 sets of 25 reps as fast as you could do them. So we did jump squats with 45 pounds. And in a town of 2,500 people, we had 4 kids running 10 flat 100 yards. Now that's yards, not meters. And there's obviously some genetic lottery luck in there, but I have to think that workout had something to do with that kind of speed.
Yep.
My name's still up on the board for the 880 relay that's never been beat.
Wow.
Qualified for state junior and senior year. Didn't do any good, but qualified. I won several diving competitions, springboard competitions, small town. Running, obviously, all the short distance stuff.
Yep.
One thing that I did that's not normal really is I competed in every event in track and field except the hurdles.
Wow.
Just because I could.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So your name's somewhat attached to the grip community. When did the pursuit of grip strength come into your life?
2003, I discovered the grip board, and bending really wasn't a thing at that time. So like everybody, we just had still pictures. We didn't have any videos. So I was posting some of the things I could do, and some of the people knew how old I was and started calling BS on me. So I met Nick Rosendahl and Sean Dockery out of Columbus, and we had the first Gripmas, we called it. It wasn't really a grip contest. It was a little bit of everything. We just had some guys come down, and we lifted stones, and Doc had a blob. We tried to lift that. I lifted it. And we just did a whole bunch of stuff, and that started the whole Gripmas Carroll contest that I ran until 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year, of course, we got into more traditional grip stuff, and from there on, it became all grip stuff. Good.
So what was it about the grip strength? You had at that time, obviously you had many years of traditional strength training and endurance through the track and field. And what got you interested in improving your grip? What were you doing to where you found the grip board?
Well, I started rock climbing in 1983, my wife and I and my kids. And I found the grip board, and I thought, man, better grip's going to be a great thing for climbing.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out that traditional grip sport isn't that great a help to rock climbing. But then I got hooked on the grip sport too. And I was able to do a lot of the traditional grip feats, pretty quickly because of, my background and stuff.
Right.
I seem to have a natural affinity for the pinch lifts. I don't have very big hands for a guy my size, so my fat bar's just average. But I've got a lot of the stuff on the top 100 or top 50 list, whatever. You can find my name on there doing different things.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it seems like everyone I talk to, there, I don't know if there's been an exception yet, is like the guys that get into the grip and the bending have one of three backgrounds generally. They come from powerlifting, they come from climbing, or they come from some grappling system. And maybe sometimes all three, even better. But obviously in my experience on the mat, I know the guys that had a rock climbing background had very, very strong grips. And, also it comes up a lot on the show is just the tradesmen, they had excellent grips. The mechanics and the stonemasons and the bricklayers, these guys, their grips were intense. And that was part of the reason that I knew I wanted to develop my own grip during this past year.
I started out, my first teenage job was trimming trees for Bartlett Tree Company. So that helped the grip, running saws, everything. I've done construction work on the side ever since I was big enough to swing a hammer, really.
Yeah.
So the whole background was conducive to grip strength.
Yep, absolutely. And what did you do for a living? Was that?
I was a walking mailman here in the small town where I live.
Oh, okay. Yep. Putting in the miles with that for sure.
Yeah, kept my heart pretty healthy, probably.
Yeah, that's
wore
cool.
out my knees and my feet, but.
Yep. And you did some coaching along the way, correct?
I still coach. I'm coaching shot and disc.
All right, cool.
I think this is my 14th year. I couldn't coach until after I retired. I retired in 2003. So we're having a lot of fun with that. I've got one girl, looks like she's going to go to the state probably this year.
All right, that's cool. And what kind of, I had heard through the grapevine that you incorporate the grip stuff into the training of your team. So what kind of things do you have your throwers doing in relation to grip strength?
One of the things we do that helps the throwers on the discus is just taking a weight plate, holding it by the rim, and just curling your fingers to lift the plate to get that fingertip strength for the discus. We don't do a lot of like pinch lifts and stuff. We don't do a lot of weight room work with the throwers. I have 14 throwers and only one shot and one disc circle. So I'm trying to get as many throws in as I can in an hour practice, which is more important than the weight room because most of these kids lift on the side anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. I like the idea of just like, it's very cool, the certs and bending and, the lists and all of this, but this type of stuff as a training modality is probably like the most interesting to me because that's the way I found it was like, how can I improve my grip for my grappling? Of course, it's been fun, getting on rosters and lists and stuff along the way, but I think the actual training of it, is most interesting to me, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing how my grip feels when I return to grappling. So let's talk about bending and your experience with that. When was the first time you actually attempted some type of steel bending?
I don't remember what year. I'm going to guess 2006 or 7 maybe.
Okay.
They started talking about it on the grip board. Of course, there were no videos, just I can bend this piece of steel, and there's a picture of me while I'm doing it. And I was struggling. I cannot get my hands up underneath my neck. I mean, so the bends that I did double overhand were pretty much done in center chest, which definitely hurt me. And I wasn't having a whole lot of luck. And I don't know if you remember Frank Henritzi, Frankie Boy on the grip board, probably way before your time.
Yeah, no, I haven't even heard that name come up yet.
Yeah, well, he was from Germany, And he was coming to the United States, and I invited him to come over and spend some time with us. And he came, and out in the garage we went. And I started out bending like, I don't know, a yellow or a blue nail. And by the time he left, I had bent my first grade 8, just showing me what to do instead of seeing a picture of some guy doing something.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that makes all the difference.
And of course, the only thing that we worked on was double overhand, because that was really what was talked about in the beginning. There wasn't any reverse and double underhanded, and no braced. None of that stuff was discussed much.
Yep. Any horseshoes going on at that time, or did that come later?
There were, but not by me. I don't know when Pat started doing all the horseshoes. He was the instigator, I think, of the whole horseshoe thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I learned recently? I think it was Don Cummings that told me, but that Da Vinci actually was known to bend some horseshoes.
Yeah.
Had you heard that?
Oh, yeah.
That's so interesting.
There saw a lot of the old time strong men, the vaudeville strong men and traveling strong men in Europe and stuff. They all incorporated bending into their routines, into their shows.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you ever explore the other styles, or did you just kind of just keep it to the double overhand for your bending?
In the beginning, it was double overhand, and then somewhere along the line that people started talking about reverse and double underhand. And I found reverse, and I was instantly fairly good at reverse.
Okay, cool.
Whatever particular strengths that takes, I seem to have developed over the years. My best reverse bend was done at one of Jed's contests. It was a 505-pound piece of drill rod rated by Eric Millfield in a competition.
Wow.
I could reverse reds fairly regular.
Wow.
Hated grade 8s, those springy pieces of crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Double underhand, I really sucked. I don't know what it was, but I could not figure out how to hook up on a double underhanded bend.
Interesting. I'd like to talk to somebody that really knows, I guess, like musculature or anatomy or something, and break down, because I've talked to so many people now in these 40 episodes, and it's, yeah, everybody agrees double overhands your most power, and people bend the biggest stuff that way. But then when it comes to people's secondary style, it's split. And I don't know, it's close to 50-50 whether people prefer double underhand or to reverse. So personally, I stink at reverse, and my double underhand is much more powerful. And but I've spoke to many people that are similar to you as far as their reverse being much more powerful, and double underhand feels so awkward. And I just wonder what's actually going on there, and what you developed through your training. Maybe it's just extremely strong wrists in a particular direction that allowed you to succeed at reverse over double underhand, and what the guys that are good at double underhand have done that allow them to be good at that and not the reverse. It's so interesting to me.
I was as strong reverse as I was double overhand.
Wow.
Probably my best double overhand bend was probably a 5-inch red, and that's about the same thing as reverse.
Wow. That's some strong reverse bending.
That was what I could do. I mean, the double overhand, I never clicked. I could never get that high under the neck, elbows forward type position. So I'm right in the middle of my chest. I mean, on my YouTube page, you can see me bend at one of the early reds in leathers with crush down pads and all that old technology, we call it.
Yep.
And it's obvious why I was never going to be a great big double overhand bender.
Do you think that's just mobility in your shoulders,
I think it's something to do with my shoulder width, forearm length, getting my hands. I mean, the time I do that, my arms are at a big angle away from my body. I can't get that push that everybody else gets.
Yeah.
Something in my anatomy just doesn't allow that.
Yeah, no, I think anatomy plays a big role, because, there's I've seen very powerful shorter benders, extremely powerful tall benders. Like Brett Bracken comes to mind. He's a tall guy, and he can crush reds in like 2 hits. He uses his length to his advantage. I don't, in my personal experience, I feel a lot more comfortable at 6 inches than 7. That
I did too.
retraction is
I
just
did that,
uncomfortable. Yep. It takes a lot of work, a lot of warming up of the shoulders to start to feel comfortable at that 7-inch length and forget about
I
anything
I
longer.
tried, and I never could do it.
Yep. Yep. So you participated in bending for quite a while. Do you still do any bends these days, occasionally?
Well, yes and no. I had a heart attack November the 2nd and got a stent put in, and they asked me not to strain, so to speak,
Oh, okay.
for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, I made it till a couple, 3 days ago, and I couldn't take it anymore, and I've been a 6-inch crescent wrench, which seemed a lot harder than it used to.
Yeah, I bet that that's
It was
always a
braced,
showstopper.
obviously.
Yeah, yep. People like those wrenches. Like as I got into this stuff, I post something here or there, and rolling up a frying pan, that probably got a more of a reaction than some of the hardest bolts I've done, and also the wrenches people love. The laymen, the
Yeah.
people that aren't in this world.
All my graduating senior throwers, I give them all a bent crescent wrench for an ink
Oh,
pen
cool.
holder to go to college with.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
I used to give 8 inches. Now the kids are getting messed up because they only get 6s nowadays.
Yeah, that's still cool. So, what did you like about bending? I just find it's like we know, but I just like to hear your particular thoughts on it. It takes a special kind of person to lay into a piece of steel, and I just like to know what you get out of it and why you've participated in it for so many years.
Well, it started out as just another challenge to try to accomplish, and then of course I really liked grip competitions more so than just training. I trained just so I could do the competitions. What I really enjoyed was when I got into bending stuff other than short bends. I really like scrolling because when you get done, you've made something kind of neat, and it's more of a whole body workout than just a short
Right.
bend.
Yeah.
Actually, I think pretty good fitness workout is to just take a piece of whatever is good challenge, but not earth-shakingly challenging, and just roll it up over the period of 15, 20 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. It's so funny as you started to mention scrolling. I had put out on Instagram, I'm speaking with Chris Rice tonight, and if anyone has any questions, please let me know. And Don Cummings messaged and said, "Why does he like scrolling so much?" As you were speaking about it. So that's a coincidence.
Well, for one thing, I'm no longer able to be any good at short bending. I mean, the bends that I'm able to do now at 72 they're just not very good bends in the scheme of things. I mean, maybe they are for, an old fart, but they're not anything compared to what I used to do and what the guys are doing now. When I started, a red nail was a big deal. When someone bent a red nail, I mean, the whole grip world went crazy.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, nobody thinks anything about a red nail.
Right.
I just like the actual work involved in a scroll.
Yeah. It's I think Don or Bud Jeffries or somebody was talking about making you strong from all angles, that the scrolling and the the long bar bending really make you strong from all angles and weird angles, and I like that about it too. I haven't done any recently, but I'd like to get back to it soon.
Years ago, I bought that little book that Eric Binding put out.
Okay.
And that's what I used to learn to scroll.
Oh, cool.
And I've met Eric a couple, 3 times, and God, he bends some monster steel into some ornate shapes.
Yeah, Eric's coming on in a couple weeks, actually.
Oh,
I've spoke to him a little bit.
he is a beast.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. So yeah, like as a person that's been around strength, had a relationship with strength for so many years, we talk about functional strength, like people call it farm strength, or like old man strength, or what are your thoughts on this? Is this, I think what I've heard, throughout the episodes now is like there's a difference between like tendon strength and regular muscle strength. And through this type of training, the bending and the grip, we're really conditioning our tendons, and that's what gives you this farm strength, say. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's probably why I did as well as I did when I started, is because I already had that work strength, that farm type strength.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start doing any grip until I was in my late 50s. So I had decades of, just hard work.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was with my hands, swinging sledges and, carrying block and doing heavy work. And I think that's where the predominant amount of strength that I had. Of course, by then I'd lifted weights for, 50 years too, almost. So I think my tendons and stuff were pretty well developed in relation to the specific muscle strength that grip and bending requires.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think short bending is going to develop dad strength. I think long bending, scrolling and stuff might. I think more like axle deadlift, stuff like that is going to give what dad strength, that ability to walk up and grab a big motor and, bear hug it and walk it over and put it on the workbench type stuff.
Yep. Absolutely. Did you ever try any snapping, or was that not going on so much?
It wasn't going on until I got, older. In 2017, I developed trigeminal neuralgia. I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't.
It is a face pain that just comes and goes at random. It was called the suicide disease throughout history because it was so bad that people would kill themselves.
Oh
Of
my
course,
God.
now we have medications and stuff. Well, I suffered from that for, 6 months or so until it got diagnosed. Then we found a drug that worked, and it worked really well right up until it quit about 6 months later.
Oh.
So we tried a whole bunch of other drugs, and then I had brain surgery in September of 19 or 18, and now I got a little steel plate in the back of my head.
Wow.
But so I didn't bend anything really to speak of during that time.
Okay.
The face pain is weird. It's like somebody just takes an electric wire and just stabs you in the face whenever they feel like it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, they say pancreatic cancer hurts worse than that does, but nothing else they've measured has that kind of a pain.
Really?
Yeah, so it
Oof.
wasn't any fun at all.
Man, that's scary. So you weren't, by the time snapping hit, you weren't really doing anything to that degree of intensity.
I've snapped some, some small stuff.
Yep.
Quarter-inch steel is pretty easy to snap.
Yeah.
Just have to keep it warmed up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I've really taken to. It reminds me of a fight, a grappling fight.
It would. I mean, it would be a lot like grappling, that kind of determination to just not quit.
Yep. Yep. My friend Dan Dring across the ocean there in the UK, he's like somewhat of a disciple of David Horn. He holds the record for a red snap in 32 seconds.
Oh my God. I can't imagine that it breaks that quick. I mean, I know it does, but I mean,
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to imagine being able to work that fast enough to cause that kind of heat to develop.
Yeah. It's all in the open, it seems, as I develop my technique, is just like the more torque and the more you can open that thing as close past 90, and the more damage you do to it. in bending, but also in snapping. I feel like in the just the short time that I've been around, the evolution has just kicked up in speed. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Horido, that
Yeah.
certification out of Germany. So Jan is kind enough to be a sponsor for the show. If anyone's looking to order from Horido, you have to use promo code Cheers to support the show and save yourself 10%. But we're the bolts on the top end of his roster are like so difficult. It's unreal. I mean, they're like, you know, harder than an edge in. This is like stuff that's so elite, and he has all the style certs too. You know, I did one, attempted one the other day that was just like bending a bolt in a single iron mine pad. So he has that one, and then he has snapping, reverse, double underhand, bare hand for some of the craziest.
Yeah, you got to be nuts to do that.
Yeah, there's not too many people on that one. But it's very cool. It just the evolution to see week by week on Instagram and Facebook and stuff is just very interesting. Have you got to see any bends from a Canadian named Josh Goldthorpe?
I haven't heard of him.
Oh, well, actually, he's a Highland Games athlete, so he's a thrower and stuff, and he burst onto the bending scene around the same time that I became aware of it, and he's in 1 year's time done some of the most impressive thing. I mean, he's bending 6-inch edges. He's bent the 10.9 bolt for or I think he's bent the 10.9. Yeah, he's bent the 10.9. But he's just mowed through so many certs. It's been so impressive to see, and I think that just like fired up the rest of the community, and we see a lot of people really pushing the envelope these days. It's
bending kind of comes and goes, it seems like. I mean, it gets really popular, and then there's kind of a lull, things kind of plateau, and then all of a sudden 2 or 3 new guys bust on the scene, and things go crazy again, and people get, you know, bending's like lifting. I mean, once somebody does this particular bend or lift, then everybody kind of sees, well, that's possible. I can probably manage that. And, you know, it keeps jumping up. I remember in high school, the first kid that ever benched 300 pounds within, you know, a month, there were 3 or 4 guys benching 300 pounds.
Wow. Yeah, that is
possible before that.
That is something that's so interesting to me. And it's just so clear with this kind of stuff. It's like, it's impossible until someone does it, and then it's so possible because then, you know, like 5 or 6 people follow him. In a couple weeks, I'm going to be speaking to Iron Stan Tamiko, I think his last name is. First person to snap a gold, and I just want to speak to him about that experience, because, you know, I've done one now, you know, like people have done them, but I just can't even imagine like laying into that thing with the intent to snap it, knowing that no one else had. It just must have seemed like every motion was like iron, you know. It's just that just seems like a crazy feat to do the first time.
Watching the really good benders, you know, just explode into a bend is impressive.
Yes, definitely.
Aaron Cochran probably explodes into a bend. He hits them hard enough that it's almost frightening to watch.
Yeah.
You think something's just going to explode out of his body.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a guy you should have on the show.
I'm working on it. He's the hard guy to get a hold of. So
he's such a fooler. I mean, he is at the very top of the grip game. I mean, there are only maybe 2 or 3 guys up there at the same level he is overall. Yeah. And yet he's so understated. I mean, underrated, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens where, I understand Jed promotes himself constantly because he has to for his job. Other people seem to develop a fame or whatever you want to call it without really working at it. And Aaron, I don't know if he's ever worked at it or not, but I mean, he is just so impressive for someone that most people don't even know who he is.
Yeah, I mean, the guys that have been around, that are at the top, you know, that have been here for years, his name comes up with them on every time I speak to somebody that's been around. He's like the bender and the grip person's favorite bender and grip person, it seems like.
He's such a nice guy along with it. I mean, that's one of the things that's impressed me the most about grip. Uh, Everybody's nice. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I'd have the Gripmas Carol, and here's some new kid that didn't have a clue what was going on. And here's Jed, the world champion at the time, loading his bar for him.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool.
Got him
Yeah, I
over
think
in the
it's,
corner trying to give him tips. And
yep.
I mean, I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's small enough where you kind of have to be nice, I guess, maybe, or else you wouldn't be included in the thing. I don't
Maybe.
know.
I did Highland Games for a while, and those guys are super nice. They just drink a lot more beer than grip guys. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, Olympic lifters are a strange breed. I started Olympic lifting, I think, when I was like 54. I wanted to try that out.
Uh-huh.
And the guys were nice, but there's a whole different attitude. I don't know how to put my finger on it, but they think differently than, the rest of us.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's interesting.
Power lifters, they're just a bunch of grunts like the rest of us. I mean, they don't have, they're not as friendly at a competition, I don't think, as like grip guys and stuff.
Uh-huh.
They they are so focused at a powerlifting meet that they don't really want to talk to you. Now afterwards, they're all friendly, but during the comp, it's different attitude.
Yep. Yep. So let's talk about how gritness came to be. This is something people talk in such high regard about. I'd like to know how that started as your contest.
Well, like I said, I started in 2003, and people were calling BS on me. And at that time, Sean Dockery and Nick Rosendahl were two of the, you know, better known guys on the grip board.
Uh-huh.
And somehow we contacted each other and decided to get together. Well, I had my pole building that I had turned into a gym, and I invited them, and they invited Eli Keener and two or three other guys, Eli's brother, and like Jake Brooks. I don't know who else, three or four others, and we just got together. And like I said earlier, we did all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Eli Keener one hand snatched 198 pounds on an Olympic bar. One hand snatch.
Yeah.
There's a guy that I don't know if he even trains anymore, but you talk about a natural strength athlete.
Uh-huh.
Total badass. He and his brother were doing the inch dumbbell back when I didn't know anyone that could lift the inch dumbbell.
Really?
Yeah.
Another person that's come up in the same way you're speaking of him is Cody Burns. People talk about him as just somewhat of like a mystical level strength that's just they don't know what he's up to now. But
I love Cody. Cody's a good friend. I mean, he's been to Gritmas most of the years, but Cody does one thing that I have never seen anybody else do. If we do, we'll just say pinch, and we're doing two-hand pinch. I'll do 10 lifts and I start going downhill. Cody will do 50 lifts and he just gets stronger and stronger.
wow.
I mean,
I've
Cody,
heard that before.
yeah. I'll take credit where credit's not due for teaching Cody how to do the two-hand pinch.
Uh-huh.
He came to my house because I had developed a reputation as being able to teach people to pinch. And he came and he was pinching, I don't know, just a little over 200 pounds maybe. And when he left 2 hours later, he had pinched almost 250.
Wow.
A couple little tweaks here and there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was that strong to start with. He just wasn't using it effectively.
Yeah. I love the little tweaks. I mean, that's like you can learn so much with just some. That's why I like talking to so many people. It's helped my development so much because you learn little things that make a big difference.
Well, I can remember the first time we had actual deadlift with Cody here. I was scared. His deadlift was so ugly that I thought he was going to blow his spine out because his hands could pick it all up. It didn't really matter what his hands had. But he had this round back, way out away from his body deadlift, and and he would just hang there at the, like 6 inches off the ground position, trying to figure out how to get his back to work.
Oh, wow. You said at the start of Gripmas that on the grip board people were not believing what you were doing. What were the things that you were doing at that time that people were calling BS on?
Well, I was just claiming, that I could pinch 235s, or
Okay.
lift a 45-pound blob, or close a 2 gripper, because there wasn't any 2.5 gripper at that time.
Yeah.
I closed the 1 and the 2 first time I ever bought them. I mean, I didn't know anything about setting.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother thing. I'm that guy on the grip board that hates grippers. Well, I just don't. Everyone says you got to have a strong chest to close big grippers because you have to set them. Well, it's the grip board. It's not the chest board.
Yeah.
and I've argued this with everybody, and it's a friendly argument,
Yeah.
But I'm just not that guy. I don't do grippers.
Yeah.
I was pretty good at closing grippers. A couple of years I had grippers and chokers at Gripmas. One of the things Gripmas was famous for was events that nobody else ever had.
Yeah.
So I put them in a choker, choked down to parallel, and I closed a 192.8 2 different years in a row, which is hard 3.5 territory.
Wow.
And then I borrowed a number 4 off of Heath Sexton that was 195 plus, and I closed it in a choker. So I had horsepower. I just didn't know how to set.
Yeah.
My hardest, block set gripper was a 156, which is just a 3. It was a Supermaster, I think is what it was, but it was a 3.
Wow.
But I could do a lot of the, you got to remember back in 2003, a lot of the things that are being done now just weren't done by anybody hardly. Very few people. I mean, the number of guys pinching 245s was, you could probably name them all on one hand.
Right. That's why I wanted to ask, because I knew it would be stuff that, evolved into just sort of commonplace now. Although still quite impressive, obviously, but
but if you did that stuff starting out today, no one would bat an eye.
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, today you could put it on a video and everybody could watch you do it. And back then we didn't do that.
Right. So how was your training changed over the years? And then, I see what you're doing these days. You did some cool birthday feats, so to speak. I remember a couple months back. And what are you up to nowadays for your training? It seems like you really mix it up.
I've had the same philosophy in my training, well, basically ever since I became an adult and quit training just for, ball sports and stuff. I trained to be ready. And by that, I mean ready to do anything. I mean, you want to go rock climbing tomorrow? My training has me ready to do that. You want to do an Olympic lifting contest tomorrow? Give me 3 weeks to hone a little technique and I'll be ready. I mean, I won't be peaked out or anything, but I can do it competently and safely.
Right.
And you name it, I want to be able to do it. You want to go flip a caber? Let's go flip cabers.
That's cool.
You want to run a 5K? Yeah, I guess buy a new pair of shoes and let's run a 5K. Bike race, fine. You name it, I want to be able to do it. And
that's cool.
And I don't do all that stuff anymore, but for years I did. I did triathlons for a long time. I raced motorcycles for a long time.
Wow.
Raced bicycles for a long time. Did competitive
for
a long time.
You just love to compete is what I'm hearing. You love to get in there and compete.
I do. I love to compete, but I love the training. I think my gift in all this world is that when most people get up in the morning and they say, oh crap, today's gym day, I get up every morning and I say, wow, I got to go to the gym today.
Yeah.
And I love just being out there, moving, picking up stuff, bending it, twisting it, turning it, hiking, climbing, whatever it is. Man, I like that physical world.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that a lot for sure. How about the mental side of training, or and in particular to bending? It's obviously a extremely mental thing. If you're not mentally ready, you're never gonna bend what you set out to. What's your thoughts on like the mental connection with this stuff?
The really good benders have moved their off switch, where everyone, when you hit a bar, you think, I can only push this hard or it's going to hurt me.
Yeah,
And the really good benders, they have just mentally worked right through that to where they don't think that
yeah,
this bar is going to bend. I mean, there's no doubt in their mind. I mean, they just explode into it in a way that I like to think that I was average at exploding, but never like some of these guys. I mean, it's spooky to watch the way they hit a bar. You know,
yeah.
yeah, I've got to wonder if the bar's going to bend, if their forearm's going to bend.
Yeah, yeah. No, there is like a level of anxiety, especially with the biggest double overhand bends,
Well,
that it seems like
bending's
something could go terrible.
yeah, bending's the most obvious thing mentally because you have to not only hit, but you have to hold that same level.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you do an Olympic lift, the whole lift's over in, a snatch is over in maybe 6 or 7 seconds.
yeah.
Clean and jerks maybe 15 if you hold it on your chest for a while. Powerlifting, none of the lifts take a particularly long time. I mean, yeah, you have to psych up pretty hard. Uh, One of the things that I've never done much in training is lift on excitement.
Okay, interesting.
Uh, Andrew Durniant and I talk a lot. We're good friends, and we have come up with a theory of muscular lifters and CNS lifters. And
Okay.
most big, bulky, big muscled guys, they get most of their ability through their muscular power. Uh,
Yep.
Most CNS guys get it through their nervous system. Let's just say that the muscular guy can lift 100 pounds and he uses muscular ability to lift, we'll say 80 of them. The
Hmm.
CNS guy, he can lift that same 80 pounds, but he can only lift 60 of it muscularly, and the other he has to work on excitement.
Yep.
And the difference is the amount of training that each type can endure. Generally speaking, your muscular guys can train a whole lot more repetitions and intensity than your CNS guys before they burn out.
Right.
We're finding that in our track sprinters right now. We have to train them totally different than we do the lifters and stuff
Yep.
to keep from overtraining them.
Yep. Interesting. I like what you said there, and that's something I've thought about a whole lot as I, have gotten exposed to some incredibly strong people over the last year, and a lot of them look pretty average, like look like regular working guys, but
Yeah,
what they're doing, whether it is with a barbell or a thick bar or 245s or piece of steel, whatever it is, it speaks for itself, and I guess that is like what you're saying about the CNS in relation to the strength. And something I've experienced certainly is burnout from too much too fast, and I know other guys have talked about it, and some of the best benders are only bending about twice a week or something like that because it just takes so much out of you. So what you're saying there makes total sense, and that kind of explains some things, because I was like, how are these guys that just look like regular working guys doing some of this crazy stuff in it? You hit the nail on the head there. That's
well, I
interesting.
think the most popular theory of why one guy is stronger than another is tendon insertions across the joint. I've read a lot of stuff over the years on that. Not a whole lot lately. It seemed to be real popular 10 years ago about explanation for strength. Uh,
Okay. Yeah.
just use wrist curl for an example. And if your tendon inserts here and mine inserts, a quarter of an inch or an eighth of an inch farther across that joint, the amount of leverage effect would be, dramatic.
Yeah.
And that was used, a lot of the reading I used to do talked about that, why one guy squats more or, benches more is just that tiny little bit of insertion difference.
Wow. Crazy to think it just comes down to some tiny little thing like that.
Tiny genetic little thing. Well, you know, big guys obviously have what I will call a greater potential to be strong.
Right.
I mean, you know, just, you know, the 300-pound guys are stronger than the 200-pound guys that are stronger than the 150 guys on average.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to find outliers everywhere.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that the 200-pound guy may not be stronger than the 300-pound guy in any specific lift.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's fascinating stuff. It really is.
Oh, it is.
All right. What's you? How about other grip competitions? I know you've had a long history in that. Excluding, what are some just like things that stand out over your time competing at grip, or maybe particular gripness years that stand out to you? Just some stories with that.
The thing that stands out the most in my mind in all my competitions was winning my one and only grip event overall at one of John Beatty's contests. He had a Hercules hold, and I won the event outright over Chad Woodall and John and a couple other strong men and all the other grip guys that were there that day. It's the only time it's ever happened, so I brag on that.
Nice.
It was an endurance thing, you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
The thing I liked the most about gripness was what I liked the most about my training is the total variety. I mean, I introduced sledgehammers on a support with a safety rack around it so that you couldn't brain yourself when you failed, which let people
I think I just saw a picture of that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, which let people go to failure. We did it one-armed a couple times. We did it two-armed a couple times, one time for max weight and one time for repetitions with a fixed weight.
Wow.
And that went over pretty well. Guys seemed to really like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well,
then, you know, gripness was kind of famous for its medley.
Yeah.
I was one of the first guys to have, you know, 20 and 30 item medleys.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
At the end, I ended up calling it the Jedley because nobody could beat the guy.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
But
so
it had to get more difficult constantly. I mean, every year, the challenge was to make it to where, you know, Andrew and Aaron and Jed and, you know, some of the big studs that came were still challenged. And yet, you know, guys that like you that just showed up out of the blue could still lift something and not feel just totally squished.
Sure. Yeah.
That was how come it ended up with so many different items in it.
Yeah.
Because I could make, you know, 7 or 8 easy, 7 or 8 moderate, and 7 or 8 really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. That, you know, you want to make sure it's open to because this is like a sport that people are just picking up, you know, it's that they're not trying to be professionals at grip or anything like that. So keeping it open to the person just starting makes a ton of sense, of course.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, I enjoyed it every year. It got harder every year. The setup, the coming up with new challenges, cleaning the garage up after, you know, 25 guys decide to throw chalk all over everything.
Yeah. So before we start wrapping up, Gil Goodman wrote me about wrist recovery. He had some questions about that. I think he's dealing with a wrist injury right now, and I think he said you had devised some contraptions for people over the years or something like that.
I invented several little things. Gil produces a couple of them. The tip tester was my invention. The Napalm's Nightmare that Jed came up with the idea and then I carried it out. That was my idea.
Wow.
The execution of it, not the idea. I've got a thing that's called the wrist thingy. It's on, well, and it's the one Gil's probably talking about because I know he has made several of them. It fits on the end of an Olympic bar so that it can turn, and the rope goes down to a loading pin, and you can rotate it like a sledgehammer. Only where a sledge is totally easy to really, really hard, the wrist thingy is a constant.
Okay. Nice.
The intensity doesn't change, the weight doesn't change.
Yep.
You can use it like a sledgehammer lever both ways. You can rotate it both ways. So it's a
Right.
pretty versatile piece of equipment. And I made it just for training to lever hammers better, but it turned out to be a really good rehab tool, because
Great.
you know you can't lever what you can hold at 90 degrees on a hammer or a one-ended dumbbell or something. Where on this, you can go clear down as far as your rotational strength will go, and the weight doesn't change any.
Yep.
So you can control the intensity for rehab a lot better.
Nice.
The biggest thing I believe in for rehab of anything is unloaded movement. In other words, you never stop moving the thing, but you don't load it up at all. You just kind of keep pumping blood at it the whole time.
So you're just talking about using an empty bar, like if we're just talking about traditional lifts.
Okay, take a piece of steel yay long, 1 inch or whatever, and you just bend it back and forth, and you lever it one way and you lever it up behind you and all that. But just say 5 pounds, almost totally unloaded.
Gotcha.
But it's a very, very almost nothing intensity, but you get all that movement.
Wow, that's good. All right. Well, at the end of the show, I do a rapid fire series of questions actually called the medley. So here, I'm going to take you through the medley here. So favorite thing to bend? We're talking material here, whether bolts or steel, or what was your favorite thing to bend?
For short bending, it was just, regular cold rolled steel. I mean, you can get into the 1019s and the fancy numbers, but I just went to the steel yard and bought steel to train with, just cold roll. So I like that. I hated bolts. Grade 5s were okay, but grade 8s are that, you bend it down and it just jumps right back. For long bending, I liked the flat stocks, the 1/4, 3/8, 1/2 inch by 1 or 3/4 or whatever. Then moderate bending, whatever I could bend at that point in my career. Like I always had a piece of 3/8 square by usually 14 inches. I would have 16, 14, and 12 inches in the medley. To do a brace bend with, and it was worth 1, 2, or 3 points depending on the length. So I like doing that for that distance, 14 inch we'll call it. And then my favorite stuff to bend is probably 3/8 square for a scroll.
Oh, nice.
Because you can put so many twists in it, and it looks really cool when you get done. It's hard to twist some of the bigger flat stocks. They don't like that.
How about something outside of strength in general, outside of bending, grip, all of this stuff that you enjoy doing? Something totally outside this world.
I started rock climbing in 1983, and I still climb all the time.
Nice.
I've got a climbing wall in my garage now. I've got one that my wife and I run in the rec center here in town. We've been running it as volunteers since 1997.
Nice.
So that's my true hobby.
That's cool. All right. How about all right. Who's the strongest person you know? This is a person. This one throws people, so you can it could be some guy from your town growing up. It could be your mother or father or wife or whoever. It's totally open to your own interpretation. Or if it's just somebody that, some name we all know you want to throw out, that's fine too.
Okay. Well, you have to specify in what. I mean, I worked at the Arnold at the Olympic lifting for over a decade, just, loading and building platforms and stuff. So I got to meet, some of the world champion Olympic lifters. Worked backstage and met some of the pro strongmen that were performing on the stage. And obviously those guys were the strongest guys in the world when you look at it overall numbers. I've seen guys load 500-pound stones over a bar and crap there. I mean, the stuff you see at the Arnold is, just not really normal.
Right.
The strongest guy, most impressive feat of strength that I ever saw in my life was, I was probably 16. I was working for Bartlett Tree Company, and we were cutting right away as in the winter time. And we had this guy named Elmer. Well, Elmer was great, big, old, burly bear guy, and a little bit slow. And it didn't matter what we asked Elmer to do, he just did it. I mean, it didn't matter how heavy it was or whatever. So my buddy and I, we dug out this big old tree. You know, it was probably 7 or 8 feet long and, I don't know, 2 feet around and waterlogged. And we had to dig it out of the bank because we had to get rid of it.
Yeah.
We rolled it down this little hill. I don't know, it's probably 3 or 4 feet high. And we hollered at Elmer. I mean, it took both of us to even move this thing. And we had like branches under it, prying and everything to get it to roll over. We rolled it down at Elmer and yelled at Elmer, "Hey, Elmer." And Elmer just turned around and nonchalantly picked it up and threw it over his head into the fire.
Oh my God. I love that. That's perfect. That's the stuff I'm looking for with that question. That is cool. All right. How about funniest reaction a person has had when they found out you spend your time bending nails?
Well, we'll start out with the first grip contest I ever did. I went to the YMCA over in Towanda where Jed lives. And, you know, I walked in with all my friends, and there's a woman sitting there, you know, taking your money to get in and everything. She says, spectator or competitor? And I said competitor, and there was this quick triple take on her part. And then she covered it up pretty well and signed me up. Like I said, I give these crescent wrenches away every year to my throat. And their parents just can't believe that that's done by hand. So the kids all have to show them my YouTube video of it being actually done. That's probably the funniest thing. You know, you meet these people on the street, and you know, I saw the crescent wrench on the bank lady's desk. She said, "You really do that?" Yeah. and I'm not very good at it.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. In closing, how about some tips and advice for beginners of all kinds? Let's say beginner lifters, beginner grip sport, beginner benders.
I have been saying this for years. Train, don't strain, and build a base.
Nice.
The biggest problem I see with people is they want to test as soon as they start and every other day thereafter. And they never bother to get stronger. They just want to be stronger.
Right.
And that's why there's so many injuries.
That's excellent advice, for sure. All right. And where can people find you? I know if people have questions or anything like that, you're on Facebook.
I'm
any
on
other?
Facebook under my own name.
Okay.
I have a YouTube channel. It's Climber 5111 5111. And it shows, well, some of the stuff I've done. I don't video myself. I mean, like ever. But Nick Rosendahl, my good friend, he's got a lot of stuff that he's videoed of me on there, a lot of different lifts and stuff.
Oh, cool.
I'll be glad to talk training with anyone that wants to talk.
Great. And that the Farm Strength group on Facebook where you post your routines, is that your group or is that just a group you participate in?
That was started by Sean Dockery, Nick Rosendahl, and Nick's brother Stu Rosendahl, and then they invited me and a couple other guys in it. It was an actual website for a long time. No, just separate, that Doc ran, and then Doc got 3 kids and decided that was a little more work than he needed. And there's another guy that would be a good guy to have on there. He's not real active in the grip scene anymore, but he was foundational, we'll call it, in the grip board development. They called him Doc Blob.
Okay.
He could take a 50-pound blob and run it around in figure eights in between his legs and stuff.
Nice.
Way back before very many people could even lift one.
Yeah.
Very smart guy, good guy. Have you had
Great.
Nip Rosendahl on here yet?
Nope, I haven't had
Nip's,
him either.
Nip's probably top 10 in the world still on horseshoes.
Okay,
Very
great.
good horseshoe bender. Fairly
Uh-huh.
early red nail bender.
Uh-huh. Great. I'll get their contact from you for sure.
Yeah.
But all right, Chris. Well, that's it. I thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you, and we'll be in touch down the road. Have a great rest of the night.
You too.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Night now.